Hello and welcome to all of you to this, what promises to be a very exciting conference brought to you by Atlassian and CRG Solutions in association with ETCIO. My name is Muqbil Ahmer. I am the executive editor at the Economic Times, ETCIO, and the host for this conference. First of all, I wish and hope that all of you are doing well. Uncertainties associated with the pandemic times aren't really over yet, and we keep on hearing a lot of not so good news. But anyway, a big round of applause and thanks to you for really making time for this conference, despite it being a working day, as somebody was pointing it out to me. And we really appreciate this gesture, uh, braving the traffic and the usual rains in Bangalore. I think it is a difficult ask, but nevertheless, you are all here, and we are looking forward to a very interesting and an interactive conference. Now, coming to the theme of the conference, it is on how to simplify your cloud strategy with efficient cloud migration and high velocity ITSM. Now, we all understand the criticality that cloud computing has come to have vis-a-vis the digital transformation journey of organizations, and also how important it is to have a very efficient IT SM system in place. Now, I couldn't find a better person to really speak on this, and therefore I would request Mr. Scott Go Davis, APAC Head of Solutions Engineering, Atlassian, to please take to the stage and deliver the keynote address, the topic for which is what is new in cloud and ITSM. I request all of you to have a round of applause for Scott. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. All right. There's the volume. Got it. Excellent. Well, on behalf of Atlassian, welcome. And yeah, it's been a while since I've been back to India. I know things are still a bit uncertain, but actually one of the first things before I really get into the meat of the presentation today is just give you a little bit of a quick bio on myself. For those of you who don't know me, I've traveled many, many times, especially before the lockdowns that have been occurring of late. I am based in Sydney, and throughout my career, I've worked for a number of companies in Australia and Europe and in the Americas. I'm originally from New York. I do have over 30 years of experience in the software industry, all in the technology sector, and about 20 or so years in pre-sales, working out the audio as we go as part of that. And I've been with Atlassian for 5 years now, which is amazing for me because I still remember my day one in onboarding. So it happens really, really quickly, and I think speaks to a lot of cool things that we get to do as part of that. I was an individual contributor in SC originally. Now I manage the team. I head up solutions engineering for the entire APAC region, which covers everywhere from Australia to Japan to India in terms of all the pre-sales technical staff and working with many of you and many of the partners. And yeah, it's great after 2.5 years to finally be back here. This is actually our first event that we've done in person in APAC in that amount of time. So very excited to be back here and actually kind of stepping up from behind Zoom. I think many of us over the last couple of years have definitely had different iterations of Zoom fatigue. And so hopefully we'll have a lot more dynamic interactions through a number of different sessions today. Most of the content that I'll be covering, and this is the obligatory legal slide because I will be talking about roadmap information. And for some of you who have used our products for a while, you know that up until a few years ago, we actually didn't share a lot of roadmap information. Now we publish a lot of that. We're happy to share a lot of the information with you specific to what was mentioned around cloud and ITSM. But of course, roadmaps are roadmaps. Priorities change. Things get deferred. Dates slip. So I have to start with that first and foremost. That our track record's pretty good, but everything, of course, is subject to change. Specific to our cloud platform, and we've had a number of different one-on-one chats just while we were waiting for the session to start today. If you look back just a few years ago, at that point in time, when we really itemized the full list of top 50 features that many of you were requesting, you can see it was a bit sparse in terms of how many boxes we could tick. And in the last few years, we've been, suffice it to say, and by we, I mean our engineering teams, have been quite busy in rounding that picture out and making many more of those features available. And that list is now very, very complete and continues to be invested in as well. I'll wait because I see some of you taking pictures here. Specifically around the platform itself, whether we're talking about Jira in the cloud, Confluence, Bitbucket, any of the products really, a lot of those investments do center on that core cloud platform architecture and design. And it really does span all the different solution sets as part of that, whether you're using it primarily still for agile activities, for Jira software, whether you're looking at rounding that out to the full breadth of DevOps solutions, or whether you're really getting into specifically extending that out into the ITSM area that we're going to talk about a bit today. All of those ride on a number of different types of security, user management, scaling factors as part of that. Each of those areas have their own individual roadmaps, and you don't have to, this is a bit of an eye chart, you don't have to worry about necessarily seeing everything that's there, but just know that we're doing a lot of work in this area, specifically around things like security and compliance and encryption and various types of certifications. We are continually expanding this list. And a couple of things that I'll call out here, again, originally being from the US, one thing that I've seen regionally is I would typically think of something like a FedRAMP or a HIPAA being very US-centric. But I actually hear that coming up quite a bit for accounts in India and in other parts of APAC where those standards do apply. So know that we're across this, that applies to the cloud platform, and that we all benefit regardless of where these customers are using our products from in terms of being able to tick some of those boxes as well. Additional things like data residency. You'll notice here for the eagle-eye that India is not yet on that list. We do have prioritized plans to extend out additional data residency capabilities in addition to what we already have in the US and Europe for areas like, I don't know what's going on with the presentation. There we go. For areas like Canada and the UK and Japan. India is something that's being prioritized internally. We just don't have any dates to share around that, so stay tuned. But that platform continues to extend out in terms of not only core compliance, but additional types of user management, whether it's things like being able to have custom domains or selective user claims in the cloud as well, and these are common pain points. These are areas that we're actively building out and mitigating as well. Probably the biggest thing in terms of the cloud platform, and I'll just go right to the chart because this is really the visual that many of you probably want to see. Again, for those of you who have been using the product for a while or looked at the cloud, even just a couple of years ago, the original user caps were quite low. We started at 2K, then we went to 5, then we went to 10. Now we're officially at 20. 35,000 users in a single instance is on deck today, and we're already talking about rolling out 50, and that bar will just continue moving up and to the right. So as a result, we're seeing larger, much more complex scenarios, a larger number of applications, a larger number of scenarios that need to be mitigated in a variety of different ways, and we have a number of strategies continually on how to be across that, whether it's from the Atlassian side as well as our partners who bring a tremendous amount of wealth in helping you bridge that gap and moving to the cloud as well. That said, we do also work directly with many of the application vendors as well in terms of making sure that applications that you're using on-prem also exist in the cloud, at least those that are most heavily used, that if and wherever possible, there's as much feature parity. I know the one, just in having ad hoc chats while we were waiting for the session to spin up today, the one that always comes up is Script Runner. I know that's still a sore point, and that's a little bit of a manual activity to really be across that and figure out different strategies, but we're working with each of those core vendors and figuring out how to improve that, how to continually make both the migration process as well as any of the feature gaps, shorter, tighter, easier to pull across as well. So that platform is continually evolving. I've called out just a few areas, but as you can see with those eye charts, like there are a lot of subtopics that we're investing in also. As far as the actual solutions that reside on that platform, again, there are a number of different areas that we could get into. I'm not really going to speak too much today on the two on the left, really just more on the right, because we're zeroing in a little bit more on ITSM. But for anyone who's interested, we do have a full amount of detail for Agile, for DevOps, as well if you're keen to be across any of that particular information. But for ITSM, we're actually doing quite a bit in terms of taking what used to be Jira Service Desk and has now been rebranded as JSM. But it's really more than rebranding. We've actually added a lot of new functionality we built, that we've acquired, that we've extended off and really layered into a core system to really tackle ITSM in a fairly unique way. And part of that involves not only core products like Confluence and Status Page, but additional acquisitions like Help and Percept AI and Proforma, just to call out a few. This really builds our ITSM suite into something that, for the use cases that it's designed to tackle, from my perspective, is quite interesting. I think the single biggest perspective, because we use this a lot internally, as you would expect, and the single biggest thing that I see in terms of what the North Star is for that solution is that it enables you to not only just put service management out there. There was a bit of a chat with someone earlier in terms of Portal and how we might make improvements on that. Portal is just one avenue to interact with the system as a customer. What I like as a customer of many of our internal systems is that using things like Help, for example, it'll just meet me where I am. I live, and Julian, most of our days, and Carl, most of our days in Slack. If it's not in Confluence, if it's not in Jira, if it's not in email, it's probably in Slack. I can use Help and just emoticons, as we all use in that type of messaging system, to automatically trigger different types of tickets and synchronize conversations that happen organically in that directly with back-end systems such as Jira Service Management. So I like that capability of being able to meet users where they are, and that's just one example. And I think you will see that continue to really drive a lot of investments and consolidation in that particular solution as well. Whether it's just talking about moving that service model forward to really coordinate what's referenced here as more of that autonomy, or again, meeting users where they are, and addressing kind of that messy middle that you're usually trying to splice together and coordinate on your own, but really doing that in different ways for you to structure that. In terms of just generally evolving the solution, though, and moving that forward to additional areas of innovation, this is, in terms of where ITSM is going next, some of the additional areas that we're looking at, specifically around especially double-clicking into incident management, and how with the addition of products like Status Page and Ops Genie, we really get some unique capabilities there in terms of truly being across a lot of inbound signals that tend to flood IT, whether it's from individuals opening tickets, messages that come from other internal systems, logs that have to be analyzed, other capabilities, but really being able to automate a lot of that on the back end and then structure it through the ITSM capabilities in our Jira Service Management product. Whether it's for incident management, change management, could even be dynamic services through the incorporation now of asset management or acquisition of the Insight product. We are also looking at extending additional types of outbound analytics and reporting that not only you can use internally, but you will be able to reflect out to other users for, I can't spot exactly where the gentleman was that I was talking to about this, but you will have more options to relay that data out in very short order. That's yet another area of investment that we're making. As well as, and this is really more of a core platform feature, but in the context of ITSM happens even more, just being able to build out additional automations, workflow and routing tools, and really being able to structure the capabilities within Jira using workflow automation. That's something that, there you are, now I see you there. I was talking to you earlier, having a no-code automation capability where you can just configure a bunch of if-then-else triggered types of statements to do some really, really interesting things that I've seen my team in particular be across in terms of refining how that product builds out. And then layering, again, additional capabilities around conversational ticketing, being able to build out a knowledge base and use products that you already have like Confluence, and really driving that forward on the right in terms of not only responding to different types of inputs, but being able to analyze and predict and actually make recommendations going forward. That's kind of our next step on the ITSM front, is really taking that body of knowledge and almost getting into kind of an AI territory in terms of where we'll be able to make some predictive patterns and recommendations as well. That's most of what I wanted to cover here in terms of the highlights. I've got the usual screen snapshots off the back end of this. I wasn't sure exactly how much time I would have to go through this, but there are a number of different demos online to get you across a lot of that detail in terms of how exactly we approach incident management, change management, the incorporation of asset management. Data analytics is actually a big area that's evolving right now through one of our additional acquisitions that we've just made. Workflow I've talked about. I personally think the incorporation of conversational ticketing or meeting people where they work through Teams, through Slack, by using help as an anchor point is tremendously helpful. Again, this is something that we use internally all the time. You know, when I have a new hire, when I have an issue with my laptop, when something goes wrong with a login, rather than even having to search for the right service portal, simplistic though it may be, I can simply go to our Help IT channel internally and just say, I need help with securing a new laptop. It gets tagged. Everything off the back end in terms of generating the ticket is done. And as I thread a conversation off of that, the chat that I'm having there in that messaging tool is automatically synchronized with the ticket that's defined on the back end. Not that I don't like tickets. I can certainly delve into that with everyone else, but when everything else that I'm doing is done, at least with Atlassian within Slack, it really allows me to elevate that utilization to being less of a messaging tool and more of a command console. So a lot of us use that as an anchor point for a variety of things, including what we can do with JSM. Probably for those of you internally on taking those findings and really being able to not only shift left, but do a lot of that core ticket deflection, tying in Confluence as a knowledge base is another key area, and we have a lot of capability there. If you haven't already built that out or tied into it, that's part of the core JSM offering as well, is really being able to add additional indexes and pathways so that as resolutions are found, it can not only store that for you, but as you search for a resolution, whether it's through Slack or through the portal, it can, of course, then make predictive recommendations on how you might be able to resolve that on your own. Automation happens a number of different ways. I think the biggest thing in terms of where we're taking the product next is this idea of like smart or predictive insights, being able to gather all that information up and not only analyze it, but really starting to make a lot of additional recommendations and proactive alerts as part of that. That's the crux of what I wanted to talk about. Not too bad on time, 15 out of, I think we were talking about at least 20 minutes. And yeah, I am, just so you know, purposely rushing through this a little bit because on my laptop here it says it's going to apply a patch any second, and I didn't want it to reboot when I was partway through my presentation. So ITSM at work, our admin has designated that I can no longer defer this patch. It has to be applied. And of course, the second I walk up onto stage is when it happens. So anyway, gotta love it, real ITSM. Hopefully that helps, though, in terms of the core platform, some of the highlights on where we're taking ITSM specifically. Happy to answer any additional questions on this or any of the other solution spots as part of that. Were we taking Q&A in now, or were we moving to panel? Because I see a hand up. Okay, I'll chat with you one-on-one. We'll go to the panel next. All right. Oh, yeah, I can take a question. All right, perfect. Well, let the gentleman ask his question then.
You showed one slide where from 2018 onwards to a certain set of users. Now
Yep.
you say you have reached exponentially on a single cloud.
Yes, this chart, you mean?
So just one question on this.
Yep.
Is that by adding more infra to your base cloud, or is it on same apple to apple? Am I comparing with the same resources? Were you that? And are you that now with the same resource? Or by increasing cores and doing all the technology things? My expense to buy that single cloud, if in 2018 was X dollars, now that you have increased, will I still buy the same infrastructure, or it will be, of course, an upgraded one with I don't know, 5
Got it.
times, 6 times the cost or for
Got it. This is actually for a SaaS offering. So to you, there is no direct infrastructure cost. We manage that on your behalf, and we just give you that cloud offering. We've had some built-in limitations that we've needed to resolve in order to continue to take that up into the side. But in terms of infrastructure costs, we are a full multi-tenant microservice-driven architecture, so it's kind of baked into our core operating costs, which is just a long way of saying, probably not. I don't think it shifted
Fine, so
our
this
costs.
is your
but you would see
internal
that directly.
improvements done at your end
Exactly
to
right.
service from the same kitchen.
Some of it's internal improvements. Some of it will often be protocol driven. So for example, in terms of how you authenticate users, when we get to the 30,000, we've even scaled this forward to like 70. When you get to 30,000, 70,000, 100,000 users, different protocols on the back end for doing things like user provisioning hit hard limits. And so we're finding ways around that. And that's part of what's throttling us, especially as we go north of 50,000.
Sure, thank you. Just wanted to understand.
Compare this product with other, say, ServiceNow and Remedy. You have any?
So the question was, for those who couldn't hear it, how does JSM compare to ServiceNow and Remedy? We can get you a lot of information on that. That's a whole conversation. Probably the high-level takeaway that I would get you across there is it's not our intent, nor will we likely ever try to be everything that ServiceNow does. That's not the goal with JSM. For the things that JSM does it very well around things like change and problem management and incident management. But it's not going to do all the modules that ServiceNow does. It's just going to do that bit and incorporate the larger work stream of what's happening internally, whether it's for tech teams, whether it's for HR, whether it's for marketing, in terms of how they put their items out there, as well as all the services around that, and how you then manage that productional side of things. So kind of that end-to-end work stream, but that's it. We're not going to do like all the other cool modules that ServiceNow has out there. So as I was talking to someone earlier, it's okay that sometimes other products are used, especially on the service management front, because that's not our intent with that product, is to try to replace all of that. But for that core activity that usually is a large part of what IT is dealing with, we intend to do that very well and continue to differentiate so we can get you more information on what those value-added points are.
Scott,
Yep, I think we'll take one more, and then I'll probably have to turn it back over to our moderator.
Scott, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, Scott, first of all, thanks a lot. Quite informative. I'm Praveen from VMware, and we are a big-time user of all your product of Atlassian. So from the user's perspective, I'm talking about the reporting is something always I feel struggle to get the things from your Jira board. You talked about data analytics and reporting, which one of the items you talked about. Something little more roadmap about it, and in our App Store also, a lot of products are there on the reporting. Some mix of that, which is the most preferred one, which comes out for that will be little useful if you talk about the roadmap with that.
Okay, for the data analytics piece? Or
Yeah,
which? Okay.
and the reporting, which you highlighted,
Got it.
maybe one line.
Got it. So there were a couple of acquisitions that we made that are in the final stages of being ready to be rolled out that allows us to put kind of all the front-end imagery on all that massive data that we have behind the scenes. And actually just putting a little bit of context around this, a lot of what organizations did when they were using our products on-prem were build a number of dashboards and charts and dashboards of dashboards, and you could really go crazy with the reporting around the product. One of the initial downsides of moving to the cloud, open company, no bullshit, right? Like, I'll call this out directly. It's one of our core values. One of the downsides of initially moving to the cloud was, in terms of limitations, even when you get across things like application assessment and feature deltas for things on-prem and in the cloud, you no longer have things like, surprise, surprise, root access, right? We're not giving you root access into our infrastructure. That goes away. Database access was kind of the brutal one, because quite often you would be doing your own JQuery, SQL, designing your own reports. At some point, our dashboards kind of hit a hard limit, and you just go behind the scenes and start querying that stuff directly. We had to take that away because of other operational concerns to get the certifications we needed for our platform. Now with these analytics, now with the acquisition of Chartio, we're actually able to take that data set, essentially replicate it into a data store that we will give you access into, that you can think of like a data lake is kind of the term that we floated around internally. And then you can put nice, even more interesting dashboards using Chartio to then do all the cool reporting that you've been accustomed to. So there will be more around that. That's very much in progress and imminent, but that's a little more context for you that I think should help to alleviate that pain point that you had to endure in the past. Cool. All right, I do have to turn it over so we stay on track, but thanks for the questions.
Thanks a lot, Scott, for that brilliant, I mean, it was called a presentation, but I found it a talk. Very conversational, very interactive, and it reflects in the number of questions and queries that got directed to you eventually, which is the hallmark of any good conversation or interaction or a dialogue. So as to say, so I'm really, you have laid the ground very well for me to really continue. And now as we head into what I think is one of the highlights of today's conference and very exciting session is, of course, a panel discussion. And however, before we go into that panel discussion, I would really want to lay down the context against which this talk or this discussion is going to take place. Now we all understand and appreciate that cloud computing has really, really come to acquire a criticality which wasn't there earlier. And as enterprises have marched ahead on their digital transformation journeys, we see that it has become an extremely integral part of their entire digital transformation puzzle. And of course, it is quite justified also because it provides agility, resource utilization, business operations, streamlining, all of that, scalability. Now, keeping all these views in mind, and we see that the entire world, in fact, I keep on speaking to technology leaders, and they tell me that, you know, the world today is a hybrid world and something that cannot be wished away at all. There can be various myriad permutations and combinations of the same thing, but the world that we live in today and going forward, it looks like a completely cloud-dominated world. And so when we see that this is part of that puzzle and a very important part, I think organizations will need to really develop a kind of a digital roadmap, kind of digital governance policies, which would really ensure that the cloud resources are utilized to the maximum, there is optimization, and there is greater returns on investment, which is eventually what businesses all look forward to. Because whenever I have a dialogue with technology leaders, I do find that the fact that cloud offers a very cost-effective alternative is something which really weighs heavy on their minds on most of the times. Now, moreover, as I spoke earlier also, the other focus of today's conference is on ITSM. And of course, this is against the background of what has happened over the past couple of years. Particularly after the onset of the pandemic, we have seen how the entire world went into a lockdown, and we are still struggling with, you know, trying to find models of working. And we see that the hybrid model is more or less likely to be the one which is going to be the most useful, the most used of all of them. Now, this would really necessitate organizations to come up with solutions, systems that would be able to deliver optimized incident management, change management, and intuitive service experiences. So today, the technology leaders here in the panel discussion will talk about a lot of very important and key areas. For example, how do you adopt a very simple and a proactive approach to cloud adoption? How do you really optimize on-premise workloads that you have, along with, you know, what are the fundamentals of service management, particularly in view of JSM, as Scott spoke about. Now, there couldn't have been a better time to discuss all this, and we have a lineup of extremely knowledgeable and insightful speakers who are all very senior technology leaders, and I was particularly looking forward to this event because coming as it does after a hiatus of 2 years when we were all meeting virtually. This gives me an opportunity to meet those technology friends again after a period of about a little more than 2 years. So that is one of the reasons why I'm totally charged about this gathering that we have today. So let me just take this opportunity to introduce the panelists for today's panel discussion. And I would start with Mr. Ajay Bakshi, Global Transformation Head, Xerox. Anil Shenoy, Head of DevOps, Metric Stream. Vasudev Prabhu, Director, IT Services, Cognizant Technology Solutions. Scott, of course, APAC, Head of Solutions Engineering, Atlassian. Vishnu Vasudevan, Atlassian Community Leader and a part of a Big Four, Bangalore. Sandesi Nagaraju, Atlassian Platform Manager with ANZ Bank. Atul Vaidya, VP and Business Head, CRG Solutions. And last but not the least, Vasant Kumar, Head, Atlassian Business Practice, CRG Solutions. So we see that we have a packed house today. And I would request all the panelists to please come to the stage and let's have this roaring discussion on. I couldn't thank you enough. It was so well done. Of course. Okay. Musical chairs. So let me first start with the technology friends that we have here. And we were also having this little chat before the start of today's session. So Ajay, I mean, how do you view this extremely fast evolving technology landscape? And how do you see it in the context of the criticality that cloud has come to have? I mean, it has become almost an imperative as far as the digital transformation journey of organizations is concerned.
So the best thing about the pandemic has happened is actually for the cloud service providers. You see their revenues, you see their balance sheets. Wow, what a jump. But frankly, it was the necessity, the need for the operations to run. No organization would have been able to manage the supplies, logistics, the delivery in such a short time of when everything is banned. That is one part of it, supply side of it. Another is the demand side of it. While supply got restricted, the demand jumped multi-folds because everybody is in their home and they have to work from there. The business has to keep running. So a big round of applause for all of you who kept the world running, actually, I would say. Because otherwise, how do you explain items to reach in time, hospitals to have the real-time data, or anybody for that matter to even survive in this world? So yes, it was the need of the hour. It has accelerated it. No brainer on that part of it. But the best thing was the agility with which the service providers of the services and the vendor community have responded. That was one of the best things. On a daily basis, you see so many plus, minus, tussles, disagreements happening. But actually for that 2 years, I felt that those disagreements went down to a great extent because everybody said, let's do it, simple. So I would say, yes, that was how it was. And I'm sure everybody should agree.
Of course, I mean, there was a saying going around that, the pandemic has triggered more digital transformations than the technology leaders or the CIOs. Do you agree with such a statement?
Yes, of course, it was forced in a way, right?
True.
Each organization has their own budgets, has their own plans. But the moment your survival in the business gets impacted, you will do whatever it takes. And that time only thing was, we surely will have to handle increased load, we surely have to handle connectivity solutions with security as well. With all the three things happening, I think it will be a case study for years to come. We don't know what happened in 1918 when that earlier one happened, how they managed data, logistics, flow. Of course, so much of data was not there. During this time, not a biggest single failure. No big single company got jacked up or hacked up into any issues in the worldwide, even though attacks, of course, each one of us must be seeing so many attacks happening even now, but at least the response and the agility is something to be really very happy with.
So where exactly would you place yourself as far as the cloud journey is concerned, your own organization?
We are very much heavy into cloud, very much heavy. Of course, we have to be when you are operating from 130 countries at such a large scale of $11 billion of revenue. Of course, it got impacted. Everything is on the web for what happened. It sharply reduced because our business is such, if universities are not working, hospitals are digitizing, shipping industry is digitizing, it will have a direct impact. But the way the organization responded with so many new transformations to offer to customers, that was remarkable. That in such a short time we solved so many new things. Because the world now does not need so much of hard paper. Now they need another digitized solution. So like any other company in the business, anybody who has to be in the great legacy of the things, of course, we moved very fast as well.
True, true. Largely being what people are generally terming as a cloud, as a hybrid model of existence, where you have all various elements interwoven onto it. Of course, we'll come to you on that more in greater detail later. Anil, your experiences on cloud and modern service management.
Cloud has changed the way we work, right? I mean, and like Ajay said, the last 2 years has driven a drastic change. If I look back at metric stream, few years ago we moved a whole lot of people off of laptops to desktops, simply because we wanted a better work-life balance, right? So you finish your work in the office, go home, there's nothing. And all of a sudden, you had to change everything. The push to cloud increased. We are at, I mean, we probably started a journey about 3-4 years ago to get everything on the cloud. Metric stream itself is a product itself is available on the cloud. So for us internally to change took time, but the pandemic pushed things faster, made us move quicker because we needed to. Otherwise, we would have fallen behind. But that journey continues, and there is a lot of things that we still need to get on. Currently, we have a very hybrid cloud model internally, but I think we are getting away from our private cloud that we have, the data center that we have, and moving everything onto public cloud.
Right.
And move from a very hybrid cloud model to a completely, to a multi-cloud model, if you can call it that. But that's what we do.
Right. How has your experience been vis-a-vis ITSM?
So yeah, again, with the pandemic, things changed, right? So for example, in our organization, people would come in. When you're in the office, you don't need to use a VPN to log into things, right? But all of a sudden, every individual in the organization is now on VPN.
True.
Suddenly, the way services are delivered changed. Incident management changed, right? So we're no longer, so there is a shift that happened because of the pandemic. The way we worked, again, changed. But I think it's for the better, because that's going to stay here. The hybrid model, as most of the companies are now adopting, where some people are still remote and some people may come into work, is going to stay. And I think the change that the pandemic forced us to do is going to be with us, right?
Right. So, making the discussion more granular, what is to your mind, what would be the biggest challenge that you foresee currently or going forward as far as these two extremely crucial areas are concerned?
So I think there are two ways to look at it, right? I personally feel that when everybody is working from a remote setup, your processes and the tools that you use become far more important. For example, also it helps. I'll give you a good example from my own organization. If you ever went into where the IT desktop team was sitting, right, there's always people around. Because they've raised the ticket, but they're coming down and pushing. That can't happen anymore. There is no
You
place
can't-
where IT is sitting anymore, right? So everything now becomes what processes you've set and what tools you're using. And that drives efficiency and improvement in your service to your customers.
True, true. I think it would take a lot of effort to really find out where that IT person is sitting and start banging their door.
Exactly. Yeah. So it becomes very critical that you start looking at your ITSM processes and constantly look at improvement areas, because there is, I can guarantee you, take any ITSM process, any company, I can guarantee you there are places where you can improve. There is no denying.
Would you
that,
like to
right?
elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, just the example I talked about, right? So how do you deliver a particular service? In the pre-pandemic days, your machine's got your laptop's got an issue, somebody from IT would come, fix it, and go. And now it's no longer that. Right? He's got to tell you what to do on the phone, or he's got to give you a set of instructions that you need to follow. So
Where is
now
this-
your knowledge base
Yes.
needs to be strong enough to handle these things. You have to start looking at recurring issues far much more vigor and rigor than before, because everything is now remote, right? Everything is changed, and a lot of people in the last 2 years, a lot of companies have had to put brakes on hiring. And if you look at any place, the IT is an additional cost. So you have to be able to improve and constantly change to become more efficient.
Right, right. Excellent point coming from Anil, where he spoke about, of course, I'll go to you. After we,
If I may.
Yes,
I-
yes.
I think, is my mic still on? Okay.
Yes, yes.
I have a real life example from the Atlassian side that ties directly into what you were just chatting about. And interesting that you mentioned hiring, because that's exactly the angle I was going to take it off into, right? Which does have a lot of ties to numerous ITSM activities, right? New laptop assignments, logins, HR systems updates, and so on. Interesting stat that I heard not that long ago at Atlassian is that throughout the pandemic, we actually grew substantially. I've hired a lot of people just in the last several months. And so in terms of everything from talking to recruiting to interviewing candidates, that all occurs on Zoom, to when we actually extend an offer, which is all done online, it's all done digitally, to when we bring them on board, when we need to send them a laptop, when they're on their day one onboarding, when we build out their 30, 60, 90-day plan. You're spot on, right? That process becomes crucial. You've got to have that locked down tight, because as it stands now, we've grown so much that more than half our company was hired, onboarded, and made proficient in role without ever physically touching another Atlassian. And that's a remarkable data point in terms of how we scaled throughout this effort as well. So I agree that defining those processes tightly are key.
Sorry, I couldn't resist saying this. Yeah.
Please jump into.
I belong to a big four, and in my business unit, so just to put on again same point, so we grew from 2,800 to 7,000 in last 2 years. Right, 60% or more than that, the current strength is higher during last 2 years, right? And we also had hurdles like when we had just went to the remote mode. Of course, the VPN, like you mentioned, right? Our VPN was not able to support this many users, right? So one fine day, like around 2,800 users from one business unit is supporting through VPN, right? We had challenges. We had to upscale our infrastructure in that 1 week time, and then we reached that position. Like I said, 60% of our strength were hired in last 2 years, right? That's huge. So it is triggered by pandemic. Like you said, I also read that post somewhere, like, who led the digital transformation in the company, right? It's not CEO, not CTO, it's COVID-19. It's not led, maybe it triggered or
Triggered,
accelerated.
yes,
Accelerated.
accelerated.
Right?
Yes, that would be the correct terminology.
Right. Thanks.
So now going on to Vasudev, how has your experience been with cloud and ITSM, and what primary challenges do you see still exist vis-a-vis these two very crucial areas?
Yeah, thanks and good evening, everybody. See, I'll put it in two different perspectives, correct? See, as my company, if it takes, and our peers, they have been in the business for last 20 years. So over a period, we have created silos. It could be from switch room to infra capsules to smaller, bigger, larger data centers pertaining to each location. When you grow across globe, you may have colos and all that. And the decision for any such company to take a cloud journey is very, very crucial, and we have to really plan it well. So last 5 years back, we took a maybe informed decision where anything we do, we'll take a cloud first. And which one to choose, that is also a major aspects, correct? So you have many homegrown products. They have to be aligned to the cloud. And they also have to be security maybe hardened and made cloud agnostic. And also we have quite a few requirement of our critical services working in DR. That is also our key working criteria for anything to move to the cloud. So when we took that journey as cloud first, today I can say 80% of our processes all are run on cloud. And we just can't push things to the cloud. You have to definitely do other studies, like you have to complete rationalization of your software or product inventory. And do you actually need those many apps to be on the cloud? Can I convert them into one set of group them, and maybe we'll also have multiple things have to start in parallel. Should I replace this product with the SaaS? And if it is a homegrown product, then is it compatible with the cloud which I choose? So for example, if it is a .NET and say Windows, then I think obviously I'll take a journey of Azure, correct? And if I need something specific to say AI and some of our business needs, I may also go into the Google. And also you need to look at how you design your master data. And everything, everywhere it cannot flow. During the pandemic, there are multiple changes were happening, correct? One is we are going to the cloud. At same point in time, there are vulnerability, GDPR requirements, data-related challenges, and we need to support people. So everybody who was working from office, they are in huge in number, 200,000 plus, correct? And all have to work from home. As you precisely said, we have to multiple VPN gateways have to be built, which is global load balancing done across different locations where people come from different locations. They should get the same kind of experience. And you might have to change your even collaboration tool, something which is going out while you are actually moving to work remotely. Then we also changed our collaboration tool. And that tool was made to help our incident management. I will give one small example. Because of the security needs, many things on your laptop were blocked. And because that was a period where I think incidents pertaining to cyber incidents skyrocketed, maybe 100+%, I think it is skyrocketed, and it had, many companies got impacted. So you have to harden, and every day there are patches coming. There were incidents where when you restart your machine, and if you have not chosen your, say, wireless at home or maybe connectivity, which is automatically connects, you are disconnected totally. So you should have a knowledge base built for the team where it was possible to do something to do with enabling your mobile and Bluetooth. With that, it is a possibility, which I actually, being in IT, I was not aware. But the engineer who is actually supporting, he did that. With this, he could enable my access and I was able to work. So that way, the people who are supporting remotely also had to be equipped. And you talked about people rushing for the repairs and all that. No, there are many laptops had to be given, but they can't get into the office. And even to move them, we will have to take them through with some approvals and all that. We have to create some kiosks. So kiosk can then have their Arogya Setu app and checks and all that. So that was while things are happening, we also had to change lots of process, and I think it happened. That is on the cloud for established companies. But when it comes to a newer companies which are coming up now, correct, or last, for them, I think cloud first is the solution. Any unicorns are now coming up, all for them to build their process or tools and applications, what they need, I think they should go with the cloud only.
What are your views on the IT service management front?
Okay.
Anil said that it needs continual improvement as we go forward. What are your views on that?
Yeah, see, we have to look ITSM as just not the incident. It should be looked as just not the incident management. Change management and the problem management is very, very crucial. Change management per se, when you have, be it small or large, correct? Any change which you do, if you don't control that change and discuss about that change with all the stakeholders, what is going to be implication, it will have a very, have a bad, this one on your services. That is one. I think you have to look it in the holistic way of incident, change, problem across different locations. For example, now we have some services hosted on-prem and also maybe in the colo and also in the cloud. So my DR may work in the cloud, public cloud, and my primary instance may hosted out of US. I'll take maybe our own website, correct? It is, so if I do some change today here, I have to see to it what implication it has when I actually invoke my DR. So what we did, we brought in many control process in the change. So we had global change boards discussing about all critical change and also ensure that change is done across different locations, because I know for most of the firewall changes and all, they don't get replicated unless you have some tool. It will not have any visibility. I do in the primary, it should also have to do similar equivalent change for different set of IPs from the different location as well. So if I don't do such changes in the holistic way, it will impact our complete incident management, and also it will create more problems. So we have to control that. It's my perspective.
Right. You want to add something? Yes.
I mean, they say everything leads to entropy, right? So take any process, it will run into chaos, no doubt about it, unless you have the ability to put in controls. And in a lot of installations that I have seen, they say, oh, we are ITIL certified, all of that. When I look at where is the change control, we've got 2 people on the change management board. I'm like, what? How do they decide on everything, anything that changes? How are these 2 people able to decide? And sure enough, in a year and a half time, nobody knows what changes has happened. So I think the key piece in ITSM is your change advisory board or change management board, the change management piece and the controls you need to put around what change is happening and when and why is very, very critical.
I think we have enough material for Scott to respond to, and in particular Vasudev and both Anil brought up the aspects of security as well as change management. You want to respond to that, Scott?
Security in particular. security is such a broad topic. In terms of the process definition and controls, one thing I was thinking while you were just talking actually was, don't ever confuse like policy with enforcement. You can have all the best policies and definitions in place, but if you don't actually have the people behind it that are sticking to it and moving it forward, things can go awry. So that's the people component is equally important there. In terms of security, yeah, usually when I think security, like my mindset is on the core platform. Was there something specific around ITSM that you were thinking security-wise, or what was the
with
question?
respect to cloud as well as with respect to ITSM.
Okay, sure. So just more broad. I didn't want to go general and miss the like a more refined point off of that. Security in particular is obviously, especially for our cloud platform, a core component. It's actually one of the first conversations we have as a vendor with any customer looking to make that migration. We'll cover quite often a number of things. What is that InfoSec review and what does that look like? We get them across all the different documents and controls and certifications and any additional detail. We literally can like flood their security team with a lot of documentation. I've read the spreadsheets, I've seen the controls. There's a lot of detail in there. The short version is for anyone who is familiar with the infrastructure layer and had to build applications on top of something like AWS, is that's what our SaaS offering rides on. And we inherit those controls and augment them in terms of the application and the solutions that we provide. So quite often, and I see a lot of head shaking, quite often for teams that already kind of know what that delta looks like, they're like, yeah, we get it. We kind of know what the core baseline is, and we understand how to be across that gap and what questions we need to ask from you as a solution vendor to kind of round that out. Then there are edge cases around, what about applications and what about data residency, and those are some of the items on the roadmap, right? That is very much an area that's still evolving, shall we say. Applications can be a bit tricky not only to migrate, but when you really look at an overall security posture of what that means in addition to the core data that we maintain, that is something due to the underlying frameworks for those applications that is going to be a longer arc to bend. Right now, the Connect framework that's given for applications means that those vendors are hosting that data on their own. It's not in our AWS infrastructure, it's elsewhere. And so that means, wow, in terms of security, you've really got to double click on what that means for customers. We are going to move to a secondary framework called Forge that'll actually take that in-house and will make that part of our core AWS infrastructure, kind of like it was on-prem, right? You downloaded an app, it was in that same database. This will conceptually be kind of the same thing. And that will obviate a lot of those discussions. But having those vendors switch to that new framework takes time, takes effort. It effectively means a rewrite. And that's why we have a team dedicated, and I showed that chart on how we've itemized and have targeted a lot of those apps, and we are investing our resources to help those application vendors move that bar forward as well. So those are just a few general security-related things that I would touch on.
And I think you would have addressed and allayed the security concerns that you spoke about earlier. Now, really going on to Sandesi. So, Sandesi, you have implemented Atlassian solutions, and you have had a journey of this, transformation. How has your experience been? And coming from the horse's mouth, so as to say.
Yeah, thanks for that. Actually, I just wanted to share some experience, what we felt. So initially, we implemented the Atlassian platform in one of the highest bank in Australia. When we started, believe it, the users were 50. And we started these tools, including Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket, Bamboo, all the tools, end-to-end software development lifecycle we implemented. And we started with the 50 users, and before the pandemic, we were at 10,000. It's about 10,000. And we observed one thing. So whenever we go to the floor walk or something, so we see the sticky notes on the boards and in progress, to do, done, and they move every day and do the daily stand-ups every time on the the physical walls. The pandemic came, then we bought the licenses in middle of with the Atlassian from 10,000 to the 25K, because that's how the change happened. So gradually the users are using Jira is increased. Now, Jira is again, we are providing offerings for the software solutions like a development team, support teams are using it. And what one point of time, these ITSMs came to the picture and every customer is looking for the fast response. So they want to get a solution very fast. When even it was not there in the before pandemic. Then we thought about a Jira service management implementation. How come Jira service management provides solutions very faster? Jira service management is not a different tool, right? So it's a tightly coupled with the Jira. That's the reason the development teams, operations teams, and the finance teams like HR and payments teams, everyone can work together in one platform. They can apply the dependencies each other. So that's how the Atlassian offering a lot of features in the on-prem as well as the cloud. And one more point I just wanted to bring. So most of the people thinking about the data security and the migrations from the on-prem to the cloud. So we always think about a strategy. So how you're going through that. Either it's a private cloud, it's a public cloud, or a multi-cloud strategy. So which one you're going through, and what is your customer response based on that? Because whenever you plan a strategy, it should not impact your customer operations. So that's the key funda, right? That's how we manage, and within 2 years, we've seen the gradual growth from 10K to 25K, if I say. So,
Vishnu, your views on it. You have also been a customer and you've used these solutions.
Right, so my experience, right, so it was amazing till the time Atlassian announced the retirement of server license, right? So, Scott, you can take it to Scott and Mike as well. So, I started my journey with Atlassian when I was with Xerox, like 2010 or 9. So that's time I started my journey with Atlassian suite. So in my current organization, we have 60 plus instances, like I mentioned to you when I spoke to you earlier. One of the instance, I have 140,000 users. That's my huge instance. Like we have a data center Confluence and a server Jira. We do have Jira Service Desk there. And of course, till the time we went to the remote mode, right? We've been transitioning slow in a slow pace. Like I said, the pandemic just triggered and it just accelerated everything, and we have to move everything faster. So we've been focusing each and every process which we can put into the service desk management process. So we transformed many of our internal process like HR process, then leave management. Like when I say HR, it could be hiring plus leave management. Even the internal job opening, we call jobs chart. So we create a service desk project for that. And later, like when it went for offering service desk for other member firms, right? So like I said, I work with the Big Four. So we have member firms, and we support around 180 plus member firms across the world, right? They all access our application, right? It's hosted by us, we manage it. And so when all of these member firms wanted their own service desk environment, right? That's the time we started the transformation, right? We need to, like Sandesh said, they all wanted everything to be done yesterday, right? Things should be that faster, right? So we tried our best to automate most of things. That's when we thought about automations and like everything, like automated routing and automated navigate to the service desk, knowledge bases. So we scaled up our knowledge bases, and users can directly go to the knowledge base and find out what exactly they wanted to. If they can fix it, they can do it themselves. If not, come back and raise a ticket to the help desk, right? That's how we transformed into the where we are now.
Right. Excellent praises coming in. Maybe, we can later, we can have an offline discussion on other things,
Sure.
which are not so. Just kidding. So very interesting points coming from both of you, because both of you have been actual users of this technology. Now I would really want to go to Vasant. Vasant, you are a platinum partner with Atlassian. And so how do you see, would you like to talk about how has the experience been with the customers, use cases, case studies, things like those? Would you like to shed some light on that? Particularly keeping in mind the very technical expertise that you bring to this subject.
Okay, thank you. So we have been working with Atlassian since 10 years. Since last 2 years experience, if you ask me, so Atlassian has taken a lot of courage to announce their premium server product discontinuity and bringing cloud platform. it is a very challenging thing, and we were all in a pandemic. So this is a time where most of the server customers plan to moving from server to a cloud. So they had set up a lot of migration tools which helped partners like us to work with Atlassian to migrate server customer to cloud. So take an example now, we have some of our customers here who are here. One of the use cases like Razorpay. With the help of Atlassian migration team and the tools, we could able to migrate 1,200 users and their entire project within 3 weeks of time. They have a setup in Bengaluru, which is like a migration center in Bengaluru. We can get like 24/7 support. So just we need to plan in advance so that we can take their help to migrate the server projects to cloud. So they have a lot of migration tools as well, which will help quicker migration.
Right. Excellent points coming from you. Now, I would really want to go back to Ajay, in the sense that you are a technology veteran, if I can, take that term for you. I have known you for a long time. So what are your views? I mean, what would your advice be to the technology leaders here on how do they really go about this transformation journey, which includes cloud and in particular, high velocity ITSM?
One disclaimer first, I'm not a
I knew it
technology
was coming.
veteran. Actually, that's not the right word to use also. If you become technology veteran, you are obsolete, frankly. So you should say you are a technology learner. That I will accept. Each one of us here each one in the hall is equally technology learner and adaptable. That is why we all are here. One question before I answer that. How many of you are on multi-cloud? 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you. How many of you are on hybrid cloud? Few. It's like a 50-50. There is a very, very minor line between multi-cloud and hybrid cloud. I'm leaving this topic open during dinner discussions, and we can debate. What is a multi-cloud? What is a hybrid cloud? And we have seen people mixing it up. So I do not know what you meant when I asked that, but yes, we will discuss, debate, and learn from each other. Now, coming to your point of how to start the cloud journey, few lessons are very, very important. Like my experience, of course, in the industry is not 20 years or so. We have seen all the journey right from the modem giving a sound of creaking to link up, and now you have everything noiseless. But frankly, there is a lot of noise behind the scenes. Ask me why. When you decide how or which one to pick, like he gave you good examples, right? If I have to use MI or analytics, I may go to Google. If my application is of MS Office depend, I may go to Azure and all that. Open source, then go somewhere. The issue may not still end there. One, what matters most is the stability of decision making in your organization. One person moves, another person comes. This guy has a better experience on certain products, and they believe this product is not good at all, or vice versa. So that has a huge influence. If the new incumbent is not happy with whatever experience in their previous organization with the one product or Y product, and there can be hundreds of reasons. Implementation decisions, sizing decisions. And frankly, a lot of this knowledge part has been outsourced to the experts. So there are two things. Either you are an IT head from a management angle, or you are an IT head from a technology angle. That differentiation is absolutely must if you want to take the right decision on cloud. Else, you will be surprised every other day. You will say, I want this. The guy will say, sir, this is not even there. No, but I thought it should be there. You know, that's the typical decision of IT which happens. And then you come back to IT management guy. Somehow manage it. Now, the moment you become that, I purchased this, I invested on this, but frankly, when you go depth layer by layer, hundreds of user requirements which you felt you had no idea. Because see, one is very difficult in an enterprise is to really get a user requirement. Nobody will give you. The bigger the enterprise, you won't even find a SPOC for handing out that these are my requirements. You need to imagine, learn, and ITSM, see what type of situations are emerging, study that, then look for a solution. Simply reading an article saying, oh, this particular service or this particular vendor has solved 5 problems, 6 problems. Frankly, each of the product, big name, is worth its salt in its own way. It's only when you go 5 layer down, you will say, oh, this does not has this. Then this does not has this. So frankly, none of the product will satisfy you 100%. So you will have to adjust to some extent somewhere. Sorry for saying that, but right. Somebody mentioned, right, few issues. I also use Jira. I am an Atlassian customer. So, and because of the size, we frankly use practically so many things in so many geographies, some in South America, some in Europe, some in North, some in Australia, somewhere in Japan side. So frankly, we are spread out, and practically every vendor worth its salt has a working relationship with us, which is a good thing. We keep learning, we keep knowing what is good in what and what is not good in what, and of course we exchange ideas, and that is how an application improvement happens. You also listen to what ideas and what issues. So never fall into the trap of magazine articles, that this vendor did this vendor did. Understand your requirement in depth, and you will not be able to do it sitting at your corporate office. Try to go down, understand it well, understand application level nuisances, workflow level things, master data management, hugely important. And the more you get into multi-cloud, the headache of securities will increase, right? Each one of us know that one single IT vendor is best. You know one POC. This happened, that happened, this happened, that happened. You know where to reach. In multi-cloud, you are moving between 5 different vendors. Some flaw happens. The blame gaming starts, the finger pointing starts, the RCA issue comes. Who will give you RCA of why it happened? 5 teams have to work together. If you're marrying your child, son or daughter, you won't have a buffet system where you say you bring food, you bring table, you bring chair, you bring ice cream, you bring water, you bring plates. Somebody will mismatch on timings, and the entire experience of your invited guest will go for a toss. Same thing is with our employees as well as external customers. One miss here and there, they won't bother you are on multi or hybrid or private or public. They have nothing to do with this. All of these are your core infrastructure decisions. So if you want to deliver a service, know your endpoints, find out the right tool, then only have a relationship. We have seen multiple places in multiple organizations. Organization invest in something, then after 2 years they say, oh no, there are too many issues with this. We decided it's a dead investment. Now we are going to another. After 2 years, my God, I never thought this is a problem everywhere. So be very, very careful. And that is where this distinction of this separation, knowledge, are you an IT from a management angle, or you are from a technologist angle, or you are both 50-50. Of course, you have to be at your level 50-50, you have to be. But of course, your status or position in IT management side is basically due to your knowledge on the IT side. Never forget that basic.
So very interesting points coming from Ajay, where he spoke about that IT leaders need to understand their pain points, and that no one solution would fit everyone, and definitely your decisions should not be based on an article or a blog. That was the most eye-catching statement. Yes, you want to say something?
Yeah, so definitely I agree with 100% agree with Ajay actually. So I share my personal experience on that particular part. So hybrid cloud. So we are currently on the hybrid cloud. So we'll discuss in the dinner time about that. So what we personally understood, right? So all the tools or all the applications not perform 100% in the cloud, maybe. Some applications only fit for the on-prem. Some applications better perform in cloud. So the strategy initially before we start the cloud journey itself, the strategy should give you the expectation. So what is your expectation? So in the current on-prem, so this is my strategy. So this is my CPU, and this is my payload. This is my response load from each and every application. So will I get the same thing into the cloud? So all the cloud service providers are offering a POC, as I said. So we have to test that in the POC, and then we can come to know whether it is suitable for the customer needs. Then only we can go to the cloud journey, or we can go to the end-to-end points of the cloud. Then no one will be impacted, especially the customer will not be impacted with that. So then we can change the strategy with the either technologically or management perspective, we can change the strategy.
So you keep dating basically.
Exactly.
Until you
I just want to add, I think Ajay, you spoke about, I think it's the knowledge and experience speaks, correct? So you definitely hit the nail on the head. See, we talk about digital transformation, we adopt different ERP, CRM, HCM systems, correct? So technology has been there. Digital has been there from ages. When the digital corporation started, from day one, bits and bytes, there is a digital. It is more to do with the business transformation. Okay? Is whatever you are provisioning, whatever good the technology is your business process are made easy, and your end user or the customer having better life with this transformation, which is also true for the cloud or maybe large jargon products. It could be any ERP, any CRM, HCM, any of those products, correct? Some are, as you precisely said, which are born on-prem. So everybody is today, there is a rush to go to the cloud. There are some product like what he has mentioned, this is born cloud. So obviously they will perform better there. Okay? And when these prevailing vendors who are on large ERP systems, when they go to the cloud, there is a tremendous pressure, push for you also to adopt to the cloud. Where you are having things here built big train load of your hardware infrastructure, everything is built, working, the process have changed, everything it is adopted, working fine. One fine day, we have also taken out that journey. As we speak, we are moving our entire system to the cloud. You will be surprised. See, we go with all the scope, requirement, everything is put in place. If we really don't do the test before going live, you are stuck. So our agreement says, see, for me, I will look at residency because I handle currently residency. I say it is on-prem, it is currently being handled for hundreds of processes, 300,000 users, and also for our customer requirement, our results, forecast, everything. Now you put it on the cloud. Yes, in your cloud you actually have your DR and the way it works on the on-prem, you have promised it will work. What the agreement and scope said, after moving only, I will do the DR test. I said nothing doing. I will move today, I will cut over, then there is something happens to the primary site, wherever it is for that product, correct? If DR doesn't work, will I do another cutover and come back to the on-prem? Or I will choose your DR. So show me DR working.
Excellent point coming from Vasudev.
Then there was a catch. They had to do 3 attempts to show our pre-cutover instance working the way it's supposed to work and meet my RTO and RPO. So that's what it is. So we have to be very, very careful while we choose a thing. Then it would have been best technology, everything is good, but something you are not looked at, like the one what I have given as example, then you are bound to fail.
True, true. Excellent points. Now, coming to you, yes.
One more
for the
thing
last-
to add, and Ajay, I'm not debating hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, but I think multi-cloud is here to stay. You cannot get out of it. For example, you have to use either Microsoft or Google for authentication. There might be other smaller ones, but these are the 2 big ones. Then in your organization, you will have, say, a CRM, Salesforce. So now you have Azure Cloud, Force Cloud, and then let's say for the financial system, you're using Oracle Financials. There you have got Oracle Cloud. There you go. You're stuck with it. The idea is whatever you do, try to minimize them, but the integration between these tools is very, very critical. If you're looking at a solution, whether it's software as a service or moving your own solution onto the cloud, look at how much it can integrate with rest of the organization, because that will become your bottleneck for your future.
That's a very important point coming from
Exactly,
Anil.
that is what I was arriving at. If you say I'm using this cloud vendor for my 5 here, this for 6 here, this for 7 here, they are not multi-cloud until they are interlinked to each other. And that is where your headaches or challenges of security, data transfer, migrations, all that will be there. So as everybody says, that is a little challenging part, but of course it will stay, right? The multi-vendor thing, hybrid thing, 10 years before cloud was being said as whatever IIT guys were trying to do for 15 years has not happened, but IM guys brought a word called cloud, and now the whole world has jumped, which means to say technology versus marketing happened for few years. And then now the situation is the skills, the resources to deploy all this inside are reducing day by day. Another 15 years, somebody will say, were you having your own services? Like it would be like saying, were you writing a postcard?
Very interesting points about the need for integration, interoperability. For the parting remarks, I would really want to go to Scott.
Yeah, thank you.
We've had a very interesting interactive.
Set the final note on the way out. Just to wrap around some of the last conversations a little bit, a couple of things from my perspective. And actually, I mentioned this to someone before the session started, but speaking from a vendor, it's okay that you're using other software. We get it, you know. We think Atlassian school, we think our products are great, but obviously it can't be all things to all people. That's all right. Very selfishly, in terms of how my team interacts with a lot of the topics that have been discussed here, especially with regards to looking at a new solution like ITSM, vetting what the migration pathway looks like in particular, we heavily engage as part of that assessment phase to really call out the pros and cons and gaps and really get you across what some of the trade-offs are that you're looking at as part of that. And we do, to the best of our ability, try to be very open and really itemize that in as much detail as we can. Even if that means ultimately that it might take you down a different path to use a product or a solution other than our own. My team will be one of the first ones that'll say, hey, yes, you can use this, you know, with these extensions or with these add-ons, or no, it's just like outside the curve of what that product is fundamentally meant to do. Because one thing that, whether I'm talking with the sales reps or the channel managers or our partners, when we're looking at our shared customer base on how they're using our products, we don't look at just selling something to them. One of the conversations that I will always flag internally is, okay, that's great, I get that. These are the different attributes around that. The only question I have is, can the customer succeed? Will they be successful? And that really genuinely, truly drives a lot of conversations internally. And I'll use that as kind of a bullshit card internally. Like when I think something isn't quite right, it's like, that's great, I get that. I understand all the commercials, I understand all the angles, I understand the pros and cons. But will they be successful? And we really genuinely drive that as part of how we approach sales at Atlassian, even as we go to scale. So I'll leave that as a parting comment.
Wonderful. Now we would really want to open the house up for questions, although we are running really over time. However, I think that we do have the bandwidth to take a couple of questions.
Hi, I'm from CGI. We use Atlassian for 200 products. Yeah, so looking at the theme, right? We have Atlassian where we have service desk, and we have change management, product problem management, so on and so forth, right? See, the cloud, the fundamentally brings in the programmability, right? A person doing stuff and data center is moved to a cloud means you can spin off or you can provision the services with a click of a button, right? So the information about the situation rightly said, you brought that point. World is no more an incident, no more is complaint. It's a situation. It has a complexity. So, given a situation, that means you have so many items in place combined together in a situation which is reported in ITSM, say for example, Atlassian. How will we connect the programmability part of cloud to information that is reported in Atlassian? There is a gap. That last mile, people are thinking there are a lot of solutions. How is the strategy that is going to happen in a
Very
days to
interesting
come?
question. Scott.
So just to reflect back and make sure I captured it properly before I give a response, it sounds like the crux of what you're asking about is around analytics and reporting and kind of getting more information out of the system in terms of what's happening. Is that accurate?
That is already happening in ITSM. You have a lot of reports in terms of what is going on in terms of either wrong
So
or right.
would it be possible for you to just put your question in one sentence so that he's able to
Okay,
respond?
you have enough information in ITSM.
Yep.
Okay, various sources.
Yep.
Monitoring tools, people are reporting or some incidents, stuff, so on and so forth, right? And on the other side, you have your app stack, cloud, bare metal infrastructure plus your app stack. So there is still a human element in terms of taking an action, which is still being a gap. How is the IT industry or the leaders like Atlassian, right? How are we going to fix this gap?
Okay, yeah. And I was actually thinking of a different variation of that. So the commentary up here was right around asset management. I was thinking workflow. I think there are a couple of fundamental elements around that. Yep. So just a little bit of chatter before I lean into it a little bit more officially. Yeah, so get it now. I think that helps. So thanks for that extra. Okay. You just want to see like how far adrift from the answer I give did you end up? Yeah, is it? All right. Yeah, so a couple of things. I think there will be additional data points like asset management to track a lot of those dependencies. I also heard variations in what you were describing around what I would characterize as workflow. When you're looking at tying in assets and people and other elements, it really speaks to different workflows and SLAs and really keeping that process always moving forward in terms of how you would structure that within something like JSM. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, but happy to chat separately if there's more to that I just didn't quite capture fully.
Right. Any other questions, queries? Very briefly, we have a lot of experts here who can address your queries and doubts. I think a lot of the people here are probably waiting for the dinner to start, maybe, and we should not get in the way. I think, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a wonderfully insightful, a wonderfully interactive discussion that we have had today. And I personally think that we have had a lot of takeaways. A lot of very pertinent questions were asked, and to which the technology leaders here responded, and we hope that it would have addressed your concerns and queries. Now, in the interest of time, we really need to wrap this up. We have already overshot. Thank you all for joining us today, and I hope that you do join us for the dinner and drinks that is waiting. Thanks a lot for joining us today and for your insights. Okay. Thank you.